Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in crossover battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And welcome to year 3, people. It's 2018.
I can't believe it's been 3 years.
Well, we're going on our third year.
Yeah, this is our third year.
We finished 2 years of this podcast, and we have now switched to a weekly format as opposed to a bi-weekly. So we are recording in the evening of Monday, January 8th. This is our first time recording on a Monday in the evening, and I have to say I'm a little bit hungry. And Jonathan has weird snacks at his house, so I'm a little bit disappointed. You know,
I have like candied orange peel and dried anchovies.
Yeah, it's really weird, man. That's not a good flavor combo. But yeah, it's year 3. This is our big first episode for this year, in which we're gonna start a weekly series. And in this episode, we're gonna be talking about who would win in a fight between Red Hood and the Punisher.
Yeah,
Red Hood is, for those who don't know, he was the second Robin.
Yeah,
Jason Todd.
The first Robin grew to be Nightwing. Second Robin became the sort of villainous Red Hood.
But it's a pretty good matchup. They're both kind of like gritty gun karate dudes.
Yeah.
Well, that was an oversimplification.
It's a dark way to start the year, right?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna be getting a little bit dark these first couple of months, I think.
Yeah. Originally, we were going to start off the year with Flash versus Quicksilver, but we wanted not to go that route.
Yeah, we wanted to push Flash and Quicksilver back to later this month to kind of break up some of the darkness, because we're going to be reviewing Blade and V for Vendetta, that kind of stuff coming up. So, they're more like the Marvel Knights characters, including these two characters. So, yeah, it'll be good to get Flash and Quicksilver out in the middle of that, because they're more, uplifting characters. So this episode, in addition to the Red Hood versus Punisher fight that we'll be talking about later on, we'll be talking about the news. There's only one news item this
One big
week.
News item, and it's a pretty big one.
Yeah, so replacing John Berg as one of the heads of DC Films is a guy named Walter Hamada. And so that's pretty big news. It also turns out that Jeff Johns wasn't actually kicked out of being one of the co-heads of DC Films. So that's good news. We'll be getting into that, and then we'll get into the main event. But before that...
What are you always saying?
New year, new segment. Let's put a quick cap on last year's segment, though, which was the trivia segment. So last week's question was, according to Rotten Tomatoes, 2017 was the best year for Marvel and DC comic films ever, with Wonder Woman, Logan, Thor, Ragnarok, and Spider-Man Homecoming all making it into the top 5 highest-rated superhero films. What film rounds out the top 5 highest-rated superhero films according to Rotten Tomatoes math? And it was probably a poorly worded trivia question, because what we were looking for is the 5th film that makes up the 5th highest-rated superhero film of all time.
Yeah, it didn't come out in 2017.
Right. I named the 4 that did come out in 2017. There was, in the top 5, there was a film that didn't come out in 2017, but is among the top 5 highest rated superhero films.
Right.
So nobody actually got the question right. We got a few answers, but they were all Guardians of the Galaxy 2 or Lego Batman.
Yeah.
So that was probably my bad. The correct answer...
I thought the question was easy. It's obviously going to be The Dark Knight.
Yeah, The Dark Knight is among the top 5 highest rated comic book films, and according to Rotten Tomatoes, and that was the only one that didn't come out last year. So we were just highlighting the fact that 2017 was the best year for superhero films since ever.
Right.
Since the dawn of man.
Right.
So hopefully 2018 gives us just as much to look forward to. We will not have a no prize to hand out this episode, but we will next episode if you give our favorite answer for what we're calling...
Question of the week.
Question of the week. We couldn't think of a better name than that. So at some point, for every episode this year, at some point during the episode, we'll be asking a question of you, the listeners. And if you write in your answer to us, either on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email, if you give our favorite answer, we'll go ahead and read that answer out loud on the next episode and draw you up a no prize that we post on social media.
Great.
So it's pretty much the same thing. It's a question, but it's not necessarily a trivia question. It's just we are interested in getting your opinions on things.
Yeah.
So look forward to the question of the week at some point during this episode.
It's a short episode. It'll be coming up soon.
These will all be shorter episodes. I think I said last episode that typically our run times are about an hour to 2 hours. I think these weekly episodes are going to be more like 45 minutes to an hour long.
We'll see. We'll see how this first one takes us.
Especially with one news item.
Right.
So let's get into that.
So Walter Hamada has been appointed the president of DC Films. Variety.
Who is Walter Hamada? Tell me that.
He was an executive at New Line.
Okay.
This is essentially a promotion for him. He's because New Line is a division of Warner Brothers Films,
which owns DC Comics. Yeah.
Which owns DC Comics. Yeah. So initially, when Variety broke this story, they were saying that he's the sole. He's the president of DC Films. He's the sole guy in charge. Which was interesting. Everyone ran with that story because previously we had learned that Jeff Johns and John Berg had sort of received a demotion, maybe? It was kind of vague.
Right.
But not too long after the story broke about Walter Hamada, Warner Brothers reached out to Variety, clarifying that actually Jeff Johns is still in charge.
Oh, really?
It's Jeff Johns and
Thank
Walter
God.
Hamada. Yeah,
Thank God.
Which I was sad to hear that when the news break that he may have been demoted, or what was the news that I thought he was demoted, it turned out to not exactly be the case.
Yeah.
He's still very much valued as a part of DC Films. And he's one of the heads of DC Films, but his title really is the Chief Creative Officer of DC Entertainment. And DC Entertainment encompasses all of the comic books, all of the TV shows, all of the films. So he has his say in each of those, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's done fantastic stuff with the TV series, for the most part. To me, like, even the bigger news, other than Walter Hamada, which, I mean, it is big news that he was given this role because he's done great stuff for them. He was executive producer on, I think it was the It film and the Conjuring series.
Oh, so nice.
He has familiarity with franchises.
I mean, they're both horror franchises, but I mean, they're really good. Like James Wan's Conjuring series, which includes, I think, the Annabelle stories.
Yeah,
those are all pretty good movies. They're much better, I guess, examples of their genre than what the DC superhero films have been so far. Wonder Woman being excluded.
Right.
So I think that's good news. It was fantastic.
It was so good. I liked it way more than I was terrified. Way more than I thought it would be. So I'm not a big fan of scary films, but so I haven't seen like any of the Conjuring films. But yeah, I have seen it, and I really, really liked it. It was probably one of my top films of last year.
Has he done any other franchise work besides It and The Conjuring?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
but he does have a really close relationship apparently with James Wan.
Oh, really?
Which people are saying is a really good thing. I'm not sure how. I guess it's he's just going to help James Wan, achieve his vision or help him work towards that vision.
Well, judging from their collaboration on the Conjuring films, this is I like this news.
I almost wonder if how much of a role James Wan will play in sort of shaping the future of the DC cinematic universe.
After the fiasco with Zack Snyder, I don't know if you want a director serving as that producer / creative spearhead. They're more focused on the project as opposed to the overall franchise.
But they're storytellers more so than like any kind of like producer, I would say. I think if James Wan could be like what James Gunn is to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then I'd be fine with that. Because James Gunn is a director,
Yeah, but Kevin Feige is the ultimate spearhead. Kevin Feige is not necessarily a great storyteller, but he is good at making the decisions of who should be.
I think Kevin Feige is just a really big comic fan. And I think that's I hope Walter Hamada is as well. I hope he really, really likes DC Comics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly what he's going to do first. I'm definitely curious to see what the new lineup is going to be. I'm curious to see if, like films like Nightwing or, Gotham City Sirens or Justice League Dark are still going to be made. They may not be.
Going back to what you said regarding Kevin Feige, how do you think Feige's approach to his cinematic universe differs from any other producer approaching their cinematic universe?
I don't know. Maybe he has the master story plan, master story arc. Because you look at Oh, who's the Kevin Feige of Star Wars right now? What is her name? Kathleen Kennedy?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think she has a plan for Star Wars. Judging based off of what happened with the Last Jedi, I think Kevin Feige does have a plan for Marvel.
Yeah. What happened with The Last Jedi, it seems like with the Star Wars franchise, they're kind of making it up as they go along, just trying to tell the best stories they can along the way, which is kind of the approach that I think DC also took.
Yeah.
I think the main difference between those guys and Feige is that Feige has the overall master plan.
Yeah.
He's a huge fan of the comics and the characters, and he is knowledgeable of the universe that he's participating in.
And that's the secret sauce. Like all these studios, I think, are like clamoring to figure out how to recapture the success of Marvel. Like even to an extent, Disney with the Star Wars franchise. Mm-hmm. But really, like it doesn't seem like it's that hard. Just have someone who really likes the material and has a plan for the material. It's not. I don't think it's that difficult. Give me the job. Holy shit, I would do fantastic at that job. But I think like Zack Snyder, he definitely had a plan for like a trilogy for Man of Steel to Justice League. And just that, I don't know how much input he was given on, Suicide Squad. He wrote the story essentially for Wonder Woman. He just won the AFI award for that. But you need to have faith in that vision. And I think Warner Brothers did not because of all the studio meddling.
Well, I think Feige understands the material in a way that I think Zack Snyder did not.
I think Zack Snyder had a much more philosophical approach to it. I think it was very much less like entertainment and much more like philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully Hamada takes the same approach that Feige does.
We'll see. I'm very curious. To me, this is really good news. It shows that they're moving forward, But I'm definitely curious to see what he does this month, especially. See what more news breaks out.
Yeah. And that brings us to our question of the week. What do you think is the one most important thing Walter Hamada can do to fix the DC Films universe? And I noticed that you put the word fix in quotes when you wrote this question down.
So I'm sure a lot of people, the DC Films universe still definitely has its fans. So do you fix it? And what does the fix mean?
I guess improve would be a better term.
Yeah.
So what is the one thing, most important thing he can do to improve the DC Films universe? Go ahead and post your answer, again, to our social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Go ahead and do a search for Dynamic Duel Podcast on those platforms, and you'll find us. Or you could write into us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. And again, we'll pick our favorite to answer and read it on the next episode and draw you up a no prize.
Yep.
So that is the one news item for this week.
Quick. It was really quick.
Yeah, that might be typical. We might have 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 4 news items every week to talk about, and then we'll go into the main event like we are now. So let's go ahead and talk about who would win in a fight between the Red Hood and the Punisher. All right, Punisher versus Red Hood. This is... How did we come up with this battle? Like, we wanted to do the Punisher because the Netflix series had just recently come out, so we wanted to put it on the docket, but we weren't sure who to pair him with.
I was sure.
You were sure?
Yeah, I chose Red Hood right away.
Why Red Hood?
Well, because the Punisher is considered a hero, right? Even though he kills people.
It depends on who you talk to. Well, to comic book fans, yes.
Yeah, so I would say to comic book fans, you could consider the Red Hood a hero as well, who also crosses the morality line of killing.
Yeah, they piss a lot of heroes off in their respective universes.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because of their questionable ethics, shall we say.
Yeah.
They're both anti-heroes, which is a hero that does heroic deeds, but is not necessarily a heroic person. They fight bad guys using bad guy tactics.
Right.
So that's why we think that this is a good matchup. They're both highly skilled in what they do, and they both don't have superpowers.
Right.
So it's just all skills and training and things like that. So I think this is a pretty good matchup. The way we do this is we determine a winner not through fan votes or feats of strength or anything like that. We basically compile stats on each character going off of the official Marvel power rankings and then extrapolating the DC stats from those. And then we run those numbers in a spreadsheet using a probabilistic model known as the Monte Carlo method, where we simulate 1,000 matches.
Right.
There's a lot of determining factors that go into who would win these fights, and not one character would ever win 100% of the time in most cases.
Right. The way our model works is it sort of accounts for that because it uses a bell curve to plot out its stats essentially.
Mm-hmm. And then it compares those numbers, and over 1,000 matches, whoever has the highest numbers basically wins. So we'll go ahead and run the simulations on these stats. Before we do that, though, we like to give a breakdown of the characters and kind of speculate on how we think one of those 1,000 matches would go. So I'll go first with the Punisher and give you the backstory on him. Frank Castle is not Marvel's most powerful hero, but he is certainly the most dangerous. Where most heroes pride themselves on the moral virtues of mercy and respecting the value of a life, the Punisher takes more of an eye for an eye approach, giving murderers, thieves, and rapists the kind of punishment he thinks they deserve, which is not being able to live anymore. He shoots criminals to death, stabs them, beats them, explodes them. I think that's a verb. He does whatever it takes using his vast arsenal, superior military training, and strategic mind to permanently rid society of the worst it has to offer. I think the character works less as a symbol of heroism to aspire to, which is what most comic book superheroes are, but he works more as a representation of the dark side of humanity, the side that gets this cathartic release upon seeing horrible criminals get the ultimate form of justice. And while it's certainly not ethical to stop murderers by becoming a murderer, that hypocrisy is something that Frank just doesn't think about too much. Or rather, he justifies it to himself because he's the lesser of two evils. And he is the lesser of two evils because Frank is not completely without morals. He does stick to a strict honor code wherein only the truly guilty get punished. And he's able to achieve this lack of collateral damage through thorough vetting and the highest strategic planning.
Does he have a line? Like, is there a line where, like, once you've crossed this line, oh, you're dead?
Yeah, pretty much if, you kill somebody or you rape somebody or, you still... I think it's like... Probably the line is like misdemeanor to felony. I don't know. Actually, I couldn't answer that question. But, he obviously knows it. And, he only exists, this is not a character or a person that could exist in real life. Nor would we want him to. I think there's no getting around that, that type of collateral damage in real life vigilantism. In my opinion, the foundation of the Punisher's code and his quest for justice is not just built from his hatred of criminals and his need for revenge. Deep down, I think his cause has to do with his care for innocence. Deep down, he is a man who is constantly grieving for his innocent murdered family, someone who just can't or won't move past that grief, and who strives to ensure that what happened to him never happens to anybody else. He's a tragic character that you root for despite his methods because he was a victim first. But that's just one way to interpret the character. You could say that deep down, the Punisher is actually just on a continuing suicide mission, taking out as many criminals as he can before he rejoins his family. You could also say that deep down the Punisher is a madman who potentially was always destined to become a mass murderer, and that the death of his family was just a catalyst. Yeah. Or maybe his family's death left him an empty soul incapable of feeling remorse or empathy. I think part of the appeal, like I said earlier, of the character is that the ways all the different ways his fractured psychology can be interpreted. So that's the Punisher. Let's get into his backstory. So Frank was born Francis Castiglione to Sicilian immigrants in Queens, New York. His initial plan was to join the seminary and become a priest. However, he left the seminary due to personal issues regarding his inability to forgive those who did evil.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
He enlisted in the United States Marine Corps shortly before the U.S. sent troops to Vietnam. After graduating from basic training, Frank went through infantry school, then the Marine Corps' reconnaissance and force reconnaissance programs, and later sniper school, becoming the best sniper in the Marine Corps. He went through the U.S. Army Airborne School and the U.S. Navy Underwater Demolition Team training, becoming qualified as a Navy SEAL. So he's a Marine with also Army and Navy training.
Wait, why? Like, what drove him to do all these training? To go through all this training?
Duty.
Okay.
Justice. It was around this time that he met the love of his life, Maria, and she became pregnant with their first child, Lisa. Frank proposed to her, and they got married shortly after in a military ceremony. In Vietnam, he served multiple tours of duty as point man in a special forces unit where he assisted in some of the most grisly and dangerous missions of the war, becoming adept at strategic planning and guerrilla tactics. For heroism in the line of duty, he was decorated with numerous medals, including the Medal of Honor, the Navy Cross, 3 Silver Stars, 3 Bronze Stars, 4 Purple Hearts, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. After finishing his second tour, Maria became pregnant again with their second child, Frank Jr. After his final tour at the end of the war, he resigned to be a Special Forces instructor in New York so he could be closer to his family.
Wait, sorry, the war was...
The Vietnam War?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned that.
That's still continuity, right?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure because I know, like, in the TV show and stuff, they retconned that to be, the war in Afghanistan.
Right.
So he's, like, really old.
Yeah, he's lived a while. He would be about late 60s about this time. So after that final tour in the Vietnam War, he became a Special Forces instructor in New York so he could be closer to his family. And during a family trip to Central Park, Frank, Maria, and their 2 little children happened upon the scene of a mob execution from the Costa mob family.
Who executes people in Central Park? Are there people just like... I know it's big,
Some crazy shit happens in Central Park. It's a big, shady park in some areas. So the mob, fearing witnesses, they opened fire on the family. Frank barely survived, but the memory of his family dying in his arms took away everything that he had to live for. Though he was able to identify the killers to the police, the department was too tied into the mafia and no justice was served.
Yeah.
Frank decided to take justice into his own hands and wage a one-man war against not just those who murdered his family, but he would punish all criminals. One of his earliest adversaries was a mafia hitman named Billy Russo, who was hired by the Costa mob family that killed Frank's family. Frank didn't end up killing Russo. He let him live so he could tell the rest of the Costa mob family that he was coming for them. He threw Russo through a window, disfiguring his face and turning him into one of the Punisher's few recurring villains, Jigsaw. Frank's early murderous activities led him to clash with Spider-Man and Daredevil, who viewed him as a criminal, but they would also often team up against the likes of Bullseye, Kingpin, and the Hood.
Yeah, that was his first appearance, right? It was in a Spider-Man comic?
Yeah, the Jekyll had hired the Punisher, or not hired, but he convinced the Punisher that Spider-Man was a criminal, and so he went after Spider-Man. And so he was initially a Spider-Man villain, but even in that comic, he didn't view himself as a villain. He viewed himself as someone who takes out criminals, and he ended up, not killing Spider-Man because he found out that he was being used.
Right.
So he had uneasy alliances with Spider-Man and Daredevil, and Daredevil at one point even shot the Punisher, taking him down so he could be sent to prison. And which Frank was. He was arrested and sent to prison, but he ended up killing most of the prisoners and then escaping.
Just like in the show.
Yeah. So in his war on crime, he's had several accomplices over the years, the most notable being a hacker and arms supplier named David Lieberman, aka Microchip, aka Micro, who had lost a son, niece, and nephew to the Kingpin. Micro helped Frank acquire hard-to-get firearms and body armor, equipping him with an armored, weaponized van and setting up safe houses all across the country. Their successes were not without a toll on Frank's mind, however. He slowly lost his grip on who was guilty enough to be punished and started threatening jaywalkers and litterers.
Oh, jeez.
Micro tried to rehabilitate Frank by performing psychological experiments on him, which only drove Frank more insane.
What?
The experiments ended, however, when Micro died in an attack by a villain named Stone Cold, and the Punisher ended up taking a break from crime fighting for a while. He came back to fighting crime in the renowned Garth Ennis storyline, Welcome Back Frank, where he took on the Nucci crime family in New York. A short time after, he had a brief fling with Elektra, who, for fun, had secretly been tailing the Punisher and eliminating his targets before he could.
In the Civil, I bet that pissed him off.
Yeah. In the Civil War storyline, he joined Captain America's side after Iron Man started using superpowered criminals to help enforce the Superhero Registration Act. However, he was kicked off the team when he outright murdered 2 criminals who sought to join Cap's anti-registration side. During the Dark Reign storyline, when Norman Osborn became the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., Osborn had the Hand resurrect the Punisher's family to drive him insane. And Frank ended up burning his resurrected family alive, not wanting the illusion of their return to be used against him.
Oh, jeez.
In retaliation, Osborn had, and that kind of drove him insane, and so he was kind of off of his game, and Norman Osborn had Dark Wolverine at the time, who was Wolverine's son, Daken. Mm-hmm. He had him slice Frank to pieces and kill him. So Frank died, but he was brought back to life in a sort of Frankenstein form by Morbius and Man-Thing to help them fight an army of monsters. So he was like Frankenstein for a while.
But that wasn't the first time he died and came back to life, right?
No, he had died earlier. I remember he was supposed to go to hell, but his guardian angel felt sorry for him because the guardian angel wasn't there for Frank on the day of his family's murder. Yeah. So he took him. He brought him back to life, and he had futuristic heavenly weapons. It was stupid. It was
so dumb.
This was right before the Welcome Back Frank storyline. Okay. So that wasn't his first time dying, but this time when he died, he was brought back to life by Morbius and Man-Thing. Mm-hmm. He fought an army of monsters.
Seems like a very Disney way of bringing back the Punisher. Yeah, if you're gonna bring back a killing machine, let's have him kill monsters.
Yeah, and also the whole Frankenstein kind of thing. It was interesting.
I see what you did there.
It was touching at times. He didn't want. He was appalled by what he had become, mm-hmm. and he didn't want to fight the monsters. But one of the moloids that he had grown attached to, he was a young kid, ended up getting killed by the monsters. So it was kind of like his family getting killed again. So he was brought back to fight the war. So he did, and they got a hold of what was called the Bloodstone, which Morbius was able to use to cure Frank back to his normal body, mm-hmm. but he restored back to the age and vitality of his 30-ish year old self.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So he's not approaching 70 anymore. Mm-hmm. So he returned to his war on crime after that and ended up getting imprisoned again, but this time he didn't escape. He was recruited into the latest incarnation of the reformed criminals team, the Thunderbolts. This iteration was comprised of Punisher, Elektra, Red Hulk, Deadpool, and Venom. So it was a volatile team, to say the least, and after fighting with them for a while, he ended up going solo again, recently taking the war to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And recently, within the past month, he got a hold of the War Machine armor. So
I remember seeing that a cover, yeah. A War Machine with the skull on the front.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, it's cool in concept, but I always like the idea of Punisher being a guy
street level
who fights crime through his skills and not necessarily a superpowered suit of armor.
Yeah.
But so it's a cool concept. I doubt it'll last. So Punisher has no powers to speak of, but he is one of the most trained individuals on the planet in all sorts of areas, including hand-to-hand combat, being highly proficient in jujitsu, ninjutsu, karate, hwarang-do, which is a Korean martial art, and chin na, which is the Chinese kung fu art of joint lock techniques. He's a master at knife fighting, firearms, specialized firearms, and explosive ordnance. He's an expert of military intelligence tactics, including reconnaissance, detection, infiltration, assassination, and extraction. He's also trained in camouflage and stealth, as well as field medicine. He's an expert marksman in all forms of long-range weapons and firearms, including handguns, rifles, automatic rifles, shotguns, machine guns, bows, throwing knives, etc. The list goes on.
I feel like you're making this list to impress me?
Yeah.
I'm not impressed.
Well, you should be. He also wears a Kevlar uniform that holds a sizable arsenal and protects him from gunfire. That is the Punisher. He's coming for you.
I am not impressed. No, I've always liked the Punisher. To me, he's always sort of it's like a what if Batman just went bad kind of situation.
The psychology behind the character is what fascinates me the most,
Yeah.
I think. When I was a young kid, I was never a huge fan of the Punisher because I was like, anybody could beat this guy. He has no powers. He just has guns.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started reading the stories, and you realize that it's not about who can beat him because, you know, he doesn't go up against your... A lot of times he doesn't go up against your standard Marvel villains. He goes up against, like, criminals that would exist in the real world.
Yeah.
So it's about him going up against them. And although, like, people, like... He has gone up against Marvel villains and even Marvel heroes who have tried to take him down. So, and he's pretty adept at handling them too. He is a badass. Mm-hmm. You know, he's an adept, resourceful guy.
I always just, like, the stories I've read, they've almost been, like, comical as to how brutal they were. Like, he just, like, does not play the social contract that we all, like, sort of adhere to. He just completely crosses that line. Yeah, it's almost comical.
Yeah, I think that's part of the appeal.
Yeah.
They're also, especially with Garth Ennis, they're partly written for that comedic effect. Mm-hmm. But I think part of the other side of that is just the, you know, the dark side of humanity. He kind of appeals to that kind of darker side that likes to see this form of justice being done.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what about the Red Hood?
He also is pretty psychologically intriguing. I'll be honest, like, I was never, like, a huge fan of Jason Todd. I'm pretty entrenched in being, you know, a Tim Drake fan.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Well, he's your Robin.
yeah, he's definitely my Robin. When I think of Robin, I think of Tim Drake. But Jason Todd is, you know, I would say he's just as psychologically interesting as he's gone through a ton of stuff. So Jason Todd was Batman's second Robin after the original, Dick Grayson, sort of graduated from the role. Originally, Jason's origin was very close to Dick's. He was an orphan son of circus acrobats and had been adopted by Bruce Wayne.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. The only difference was that Jason originally had strawberry blonde hair, which perhaps was appropriate for a character who would later go by the name Red Hood. His origin was changed after Crisis on Infinite Earths and tweaked by the New 52 reboot. He was a streetwise orphan living in Gotham City who was caught by Batman trying to steal the tires off of the Batmobile in Crime Alley, the same place where Batman's parents were murdered. Jason was a very angry, rebellious kid. His mom had died of a drug overdose, and his father was presumably killed while working for Two-Face. Batman placed Jason in a school for troubled youth, a school that turned out to be a corrupt training ground for organized crime. Jason helped Batman take down the gang running the school, and Batman decided to take in Jason to train him and channel that rage, fearing that if he didn't, Jason would grow to become part of the criminal element. Mm-hmm. So he was a very different Robin than Dick Grayson. Jason smoked, he swore, and he often defied Batman's authority. He was prone to excessive force and posed questions to Batman like, would it be such a loss if he had killed a violent pimp?
And you're not my dad.
It's still ambiguous in the comics as to whether or not Jason as Robin pushed a serial rapist off a 22-story building before Batman could arrive on the scene. Jason got to him first, and then Batman came in. Jason was like, oh, he fell. He tripped. Yeah. So readers weren't happy with Jason, so DC came up with an idea. They introduced a storyline where Jason learned that the woman he grew up believing was his mother wasn't his biological parent at all. He tracked his real mom to Ethiopia, where she was smuggling medical supplies for the Joker under blackmail. She ended up betraying her son and turning him over to the Joker, who brutally beat Jason with a crowbar and left him and his mom in a warehouse with a time bomb. That comic issue ended with two 1-900 phone numbers. If readers called one, a vote would be entered to let Jason survive the bomb. If they called the other number, it would be a vote for Jason's death. They received 10,614 votes, with 72 more votes in favor of Jason not surviving.
Oh, that was closer than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't until later the public learned that DC had discovered one guy, a lawyer living in California, was responsible for 320 votes in favor of Jason's death.
Oh, geez, so the fans really voted for him to live.
Yeah, he rigged his Macintosh to dial the number every 60 seconds for 8 hours.
Oh my god.
But see, DC stuck by it. I think they had already published the issue. The bomb went off. Batman was too late to save them. This is a sad moment. Don't stop laughing.
It's hilarious.
Jason died. The bomb went off. Batman was too late to save them. Jason's real mom's dying words to Batman were that her son was a hero trying to protect her. Batman, devastated, buried both bodies in Gotham. Jason was only Robin for about 5 years, but his death would severely haunt Batman, who kept Jason's costume on display in his Batcave as a solemn tribute and reminder of his greatest failure. So flash forward to the New 52. It turns out the Joker was responsible for everything bad that happened in Jason's life. His stepmother's overdose, his father's death, his introduction to Batman, everything.
Dang.
All to torment Batman. It was the Joker's goal.
To get him to be Robin?
It was the Joker's goal to create a Robin and then kill him.
Wow.
Just to torment Batman.
That's a pretty good plan.
Yeah, it worked. It also turns out that Talia al Ghul, daughter of the Batman villain Ra's al Ghul, placed the dead Jason Todd into a Lazarus pit out of her love for Batman. Jason was resurrected and hell-bent on revenge against both Joker and Batman. The League of Assassins kept him a secret as he traveled the globe, finding corrupt masters to teach him the ways of weaponry, marksmanship, poisons, bomb-making, martial arts, and acrobatics before killing them. During his journey, he learned of the new Robin, Tim Drake, which added to his rage.
He felt replaced.
Yeah. So his training complete, he returned to Gotham City and adopted the mantle of the Red Hood, which is what the Joker went by during the incident that supposedly turned him into the Joker. The Red Hood took advantage of a mob war going on in Gotham at the time to gain power, defeating Black Mask and becoming the city's crime lord. This often brought him to blows with Batman, who had begun to suspect Jason may still be alive after a psychological mind game played on him by Hush, the Riddler, and the Red Hood during the Hush storyline. But he hadn't yet come to the conclusion that Jason could be the Red Hood. The Red Hood eventually revealed himself to Tim Drake, ambushing him while he was at the Titan's Tower. Jason beat Tim unconscious before removing the R emblem from his costume. Now revealed, Jason set his endgame plan into motion, kidnapping the Joker and luring Batman to Crime Alley. Enraged that Batman didn't kill the Joker after he killed him, he then gave Batman an ultimatum: kill the Joker or kill Jason before he kills the Joker. Batman expressed remorse for his failures and expressed a desire to help Jason, while also admitting that he did fantasize about killing the Joker often, before ruining the Red Hood's plan with a trusty batarang. The Joker seized on the moment and triggered some nearby explosives that sent all of the three into a nearby bay. Jason usurped Dick Grayson's mantle as Nightwing for a time, becoming a murderous version of the hero. Jason made a lot of enemies that way and eventually had to be rescued by Dick after being kidnapped by monsters. The two teamed up and formed a kind of
Mobsters
bond.
or monsters?
Mobsters.
Okay. Sounded like you said monsters.
Mobsters. The two teamed up and formed a kind of bond, despite the fact that they fought again not too long after in the Battle for the Cowl storyline, where the Red Hood became a gun-toting Batman after Bruce Wayne's supposed death, and Dick was forced to confront Jason once again. Jason had shot a young Damian Wayne who was trying to prove himself. Damian Wayne is Bruce Wayne's son, and was tracked down by Tim Drake, whom Jason beat once again. After proving unworthy of becoming Batman, Jason worked at maligning Batman as a concept in the public eye, retooling his own outfit to look more heroic, and recruiting a sidekick named Scarlet. He made a very public war on crime in which he killed criminals, villains, and even corrupt cops. Eventually, he was stopped by Dick and Damian as Batman and Robin, and Jason was put in Arkham Asylum. After insisting on his sanity and passing all of his psychological tests, he was transferred to Gotham Prison, where the suicide rate spiked among the inmates afraid for their lives. And sure enough, Jason did kill quite a few of them, either in self-defense or from when he would do things like poison the cafeteria food.
Well, he's a lot more like the Punisher than I thought.
Yeah. He was later freed from his imprisonment unwillingly by a group of mercenaries hired by his former sidekick Scarlet, whom the mercenaries turned against. And it took a team up between Red Hood, Batman, who is now Bruce Wayne again, and Damian as Robin to rescue Scarlet. After learning of the Joker's extensive string pulling in his early life, Jason's villainous streak diminished a bit. He became the leader of a team of hero/mercenaries called the Outlaws, initially with Arsenal and Starfire, but later with Bizarro and Artemis, sort of cementing him as one of the Dark Trinity. Jason himself was inducted into Batman Incorporated, fully embracing a role as Batman's mole within Gotham's criminal underworld to dismantle it from within.
Oh, that's cool.
So abilities-wise, Jason Todd has the benefit of having been trained by Batman himself in everything from acrobatics to detective work and martial arts. His training was expanded upon after his resurrection, and he has proven himself to be a master tactician, outwitting both the likes of Batman, the Joker, and pretty much all the other Robins. He has access to military-grade weaponry, including firearms and explosives, which he uses extensively, though he also uses batarangs and other gadgets as a callback to his former mentor. He wields a Chris dagger. It's a mystical blade that glows fire red hot when it comes into contact with blood.
Where did he get this from?
Talia al Ghul. It was, I think it used to be Ra's al Ghul's dagger.
Okay.
So he uses that in close quarter combat, and he also wears a protective suit with the red bat symbol that originally belonged to Nightwing. In addition to that, he obviously has his red hood, which protects his head. It's a helmet.
That's the one thing that Punisher doesn't have, which makes me kind of nervous. He doesn't have any sort of head protection.
Yeah, no headshot is going to take the red hood out.
They're pretty much identical, except he has a mystical sword or mystical dagger.
Yeah.
That just turns red hot.
I believe it's when it comes into contact with the blade, because I've seen him in comic panels where he'll cut himself to activate it.
Mm-hmm. What's the point of it?
It goes through
a blade
armor.
Can go through. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, a blade can go through Kevlar anyway.
Yeah.
Just in regards to this fight specifically.
Right.
Interesting.
You're screwed.
No, I'm not screwed. All right. Let's get into the breakdown, the speculation, the speculative battle of one of these 1,000 matches that these two are going to fight, and talk about how it would go. So when we compile the stats for these matchups, we don't account for the environment. There's no way for us to take stats for the environment, basically. Right. So we just assume when we speculate on these battles, we assume that they take place in a non-environment location where the environment does not play a factor in the fight itself. And we assume that they start about 50 yards apart. They don't know anything about each other, but they know that each other are a threat.
Right.
So that's how it goes. How often does the Red Hood use guns? Is he
all the time?
All the time? He's a heavy gun guy.
For sure.
Does he carry heavy ordnance like the Punisher does?
Not typically. Usually he just, keeps 2 sidearms.
Okay. Punisher will have an automatic weapon, a shotgun, and a missile launcher.
Okay. Then Red Hood gets his handguns, his 2 handguns.
Okay.
He gets a shotgun.
Okay.
He gets a machine gun.
Sure.
And he gets a...
Wait, he doesn't carry that many weapons on him?
No, he moves quick and silent and stuff.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, he's more of a stealthy guy. I mean, Punisher's stealthy, but he's stealthy. He's a stealthy tank. He's not... I would say he's not quite as stealthy as any of the Bat family.
Sure.
Necessarily.
Yeah. Punisher gets 1 huge rifle. He doesn't get a fucking missile launcher.
Wait, no, he has a sniper rifle, a machine gun, an automatic rifle, bazooka.
No.
Why not?
It's 1 heavy duty rifle and handguns and grenades and stuff.
Well, it's a sniper rifle with armor piercing bullets then.
All right.
Yay!
All right.
Okay. So
you think Batman hasn't accounted for armor piercing? You're wrong.
Armor piercing bullets can go through it.
No.
Yes, they can.
Why?
Don't freaking lie. Why does Batman do backflips to dodge bullets if he can just get shot? Man, I'll just stick with the rocket launcher. He has a rocket launcher. He has a rocket launcher.
Have you seen a rocket launcher? Those things are huge.
Yeah, but it's like a mini one that you strap to your back,
A mini rocket launcher.
Yeah. He has his 2 guns on his side. He has a rocket launcher and an automatic machine gun strapped to his back, and he's holding a shotgun.
Okay. Red Hood has his 2 guns in his holsters. He has a bunch of gadgets and batarangs and stuff in his gloves and boots.
And that's it, because he doesn't carry anything else.
And he also has did I already say his dagger?
No.
and he's carrying an assault rifle.
I don't think he carries that much.
That's not even that much. He's holding like one weapon.
He's holding two guns.
Everything else
some
is
knives,
like pouched.
batarangs. He's holding an assault rifle.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So this is how it's gonna start. It's gonna start off with a rocket launcher, and he's gonna blow up that assault rifle.
No. Here's how it's gonna start. The Punisher's gonna pull out his rocket launcher, and right away, Red Hood is gonna throw some batarangs at his hands to like damage his hands so he can't fire the rocket.
From 50 yards, he's gonna throw batarangs at his
He's
fingers.
a badass.
From 50 yards with a throwing weapon.
Okay.
Against a skilled.
Okay.
No. I think they're both going to see that they both have automatic guns. So I think if he sees that Red Hood is holding an assault rifle,
he's going to take him down.
He's not going to want to use
possible.
his shotgun.
Right.
So he's going to quickly switch out to his assault rifle, and the time that it takes for him to do that, Red Hood's probably going to get off a few shots. So as he's trying to change guns, he's going to start off with a disadvantage because he's switching guns. All because of what I said. Damn it. So he's like dodging out of the way of the bullets, probably gets shot a few times, but he manages to pull out his gun or his rifle, takes aim and snipes something vital, like the artery in his leg.
You can't snipe someone as you're being shot at that accurately.
Okay, so then he knows that he needs to kind of do something where he doesn't have a whole lot of time to aim. So that's when he uses the rocket launcher. So he's like, shit! So he like jumps, he dives, and he fires the rocket launcher mid-dive roll.
Okay.
And he shoots it at Red Hood.
All right, so since it's in mid-dive roll, I'm assuming it's not going to be that accurate.
But he doesn't need it to be accurate. It's going to land somewhere in the vicinity of Red Hood's feet.
Okay, so that's going to like explode.
Yeah.
It's not going to explode like too close to Red Hood.
No,
it's
it
going to
is.
send him into
It's
the
going
air.
to send really close because he's an expert marksman. It's going to send Red Hood flying. And probably knock his gun out of his hand. His assault rifle.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So that's as he's flying through the air, mid-air, he pulls out his guns and then starts firing on the Punisher as he flips into a perfect landing.
He's not that quick. If anything, he starts firing after he already lands.
Okay, that's fine. Anyway, he's firing on
I don't know how
Punisher
you
again.
turn like a freaking explosion near your face into like a graceful fall, armed and ready to shoot with your two handguns, but whatever.
He's just cool like that.
That's
So he's firing on the Punisher again.
it's hard to defend yourself against guns when there's no environment.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
There's nothing to hide behind.
So like both of these guys are just gonna get shot a lot.
they're taking a few slugs for sure.
Punisher just has to really hope he doesn't get shot in the head.
So about this time is when Punisher gets shot in the head. And
About this
the
time
match is over.
is when Punisher has the War Machine armor. I should have brought that to this fight.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so what he has so he's
Basically, these guys are just gonna be emptying clips at each other, like until they run out of bullets.
yeah, they're gonna be emptying some clips, and they're probably gonna not be able to walk. Probably gonna stumble towards each other, trying to get in close because they run out of bullets and try to stab each other with daggers.
Right. So I mean, but the Punisher, he did bring more guns to this match, so there's gonna be a point where the Punisher has rounds to fire and Jason Todd doesn't.
That's true.
But Jason Todd does have, things like, a taser and, like, his batarangs. So he's going to be using those to disarm the Punisher.
That's gonna really piss the Punisher off.
What is the Punisher going to do against a taser?
Get pissed off. He's probably gonna try to get him real close. He's probably already seriously damaged.
Yeah.
Same goes for Red Hood.
Not as damaged as the Punisher, though, because
I think
he has better armor and he has the helmet.
I think the Punisher's gonna realize that they're just gonna keep shooting each other until somebody gets that lucky shot.
It's hard for two mastermind tacticians to go up against each other with no pre-planning. It's just like a horrible gunfight.
It's like the worst kind of gun.
I know.
It's not even like the cool kind where there's like a whole bunch of cover and stuff and you can hide and dodge and there's no cover in this. That's really rough. That's really violent. So he's probably gonna like stumble towards him, and he's gonna like try to fire out some gunshot blasts, but he's gonna get disarmed most likely because he's already badly damaged.
That's when the redhead pulls out his like flame dagger and just like and then slices right through his.
Well, they're
gun.
not that close yet. Like he's walking towards them and he stumbles, and like Frank is on the ground and he sees that Red Hood pulls out his knife, so he pulls out his knife, and he's like,
And then Jason like rubs it against like touches the blade to his leg. He doesn't rub it. I don't know why I said that. he touches the blade to his leg, so like it activates and it's like it's red hot and it's flaming.
You mean he cuts his leg?
No, he's already bleeding from gunshot wounds.
Oh, yeah, okay. So
maybe
Punisher, he has a ballistic knife which shoots the blade out, and so he's on the ground, and just like in that 2004 Punisher movie, he shoots the blade and it goes right into Red Hood's neck.
No, that's when Red Hood just knocks it out of the...
it goes into his neck.
No, he just knocks it right out of the way. Then he leaps onto the Punisher and just stabs him right in the neck.
Then he takes out his non-ballistic blade and he blocks the Red Hood's dagger with his own dagger, and it's like a dagger fight, kind of like in Winter Soldier, like that kind of badass where they're fighting with the dagger. Remember?
I don't remember that.
No, it was badass. And they're like throwing it and like flipping it and like trying to stab each other and like knifey stab. And eventually Punisher stabs Red Hood right in the chest. Right in the chest.
Yeah. That's like the most protected area. Don't you know that?
Right in the stomach. Shanks in prison style, like at least 5 times.
No, if he's shanking him 5 times in the stomach, then Red Hood is shanking. This is really violent.
Stab.
In the face.
Okay. And I think that's pretty much how most of the fights would go. It's really hard to come up with different scenarios in which they're shooting at each other from long range.
And they work their way towards each other.
And then possibly work their way towards each other.
I can't even handle paintball. Like, once in a paintball, once like a paintball like zooms by my head, like, I go instantly into like survival mode. Like, I just hide.
Yeah.
Hide behind things.
This is probably our most grisly fight yet. Like, I thought our Wolverine Hawkman fight was pretty grisly, but this one is probably more grisly.
I thought our Deadshot Bullseye was pretty grisly.
Yeah, that's pretty grisly too. That was almost similar to this one.
Sort of, yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and take it to the stats, and we'll run those simulations and come back with a winner.
Cool. Didn't the machine make that noise for the Deadshot Bullseye match?
I don't remember. That was a long time ago.
It was not a good match.
So we ran 1,000 simulations, and we have a winner. I gotta say, now that as we were compiling the stats, I really wish I would have thrown some more grenades during this fight.
I was wondering where he did it, or like a flamethrower.
Yeah. Oh no, because I don't trust a flamethrower because I think Red Hood is too good of a shot, and he would shoot the tanks.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be good.
Most
for
likely.
Frank.
Most likely.
But yeah, I should have just been throwing grenades the whole damn time.
Well, Red Hood could just throw explosive batarangs. I don't know.
Red Hood is dumb. This is what I've learned. If I learned anything from this episode,
why?
Is that he's jealous? He is dumb.
You're so jelly right now.
It's like he could just do whatever the Punisher can do. I'm like, oh yeah, the Punisher carries like heavier like rocket launchers and stuff. And I was trying to convince Jonathan that Red Hood didn't carry rocket launchers, and then he proceeded to show me at least 10 different images of the Red Hood carrying huge-ass rocket launchers.
Yeah. There's nothing that the Punisher could do that the Red Hood can't. And the Red Hood has more advantages than the Punisher. Like a fucking helmet, you know?
Stupid helmets. Punisher has to get a helmet. Well, there was a Punisher at one point when the Punisher was incarcerated. There was a second Punisher. His name was like Carlos something, and he had a helmet. And on the helmet he painted a white skull, and that was where his skull insignia was. But he looked a lot kind of like Crossbones.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He was dumb. Frank Castle all the way. But yeah, he kind of needs a helmet. I really liked the Punisher Warzone look, where like his body armor, like the protection went like almost past his chin. Like he had that huge neck armor kind of thing.
I don't think I know that one.
Oh. Just look at a picture of the Punisher Warzone Punisher.
Okay, all right.
No, from the movie.
I want the results. I want the win.
You don't need the results. You can't handle the results. All right. Okay, so after 1,000 simulations ran, the winner of the Red Hood versus Punisher matchup is The Punisher.
No.
It was the redhead.
Yeah, totally.
It was the redhead.
That makes sense.
And it wasn't.
It's okay. It's okay.
No.
It's okay to
It's
lose
not
to
okay.
someone like the Red Hood.
It's not okay.
He's just so badass.
Punisher should have won this.
Nah. He didn't stand a chance.
I think because there was no cover. I think that was the big thing. But
No Vans.
I think Punisher, he's the type of character who's meant to, always have a plan and cover.
Wait, what were the results?
Okay, so Red Hood won 685 of the matches.
Nice.
Out of 1,000.
Nice.
So 68.5% of the time.
It's almost 70%.
No, it's not. It's not even close to
Almost
it's 68. It's
68.
It's closer to like
close to 70?
2/3. It's closer to 2/3 than 70.
All right.
So yeah, don't say 70. Say 65.
It's close to 70.
It's science. If you don't like it,
Can't dispute
then
science.
just don't mention it to anyone ever.
Tell
right.
all your friends. Red Hood beats Punisher.
That does it for this episode. I gotta say, I'm really bummed about this one.
Dude, don't feel bad.
Kind of want to flip this table.
Don't
What?
do that.
It's the Punisher. I like the Punisher.
Don't feel bad.
It makes me feel bad when
all right.
he doesn't win.
He lost to a sidekick. Former sidekick.
Whatever. All right. So that does it for this episode. We will see you guys again next week. That's so weird to say.
Yeah.
But in that episode, we will be reviewing the film V for Vendetta. Because we need to review a film, and it'll be a throwback movie, and that's the movie that our friend Mike Cusick wanted to review, and it's a DC film, and it's a great film.
And I think it's. I mean, honestly, I was hoping by this time Warner Brothers was going to, announce the name of the sort of the offshoot studio that was going to do like Elseworlds type films, because that was supposed to be like its own separate thing with its own name, and they haven't done that yet. But I thought the V for Vendetta would have been really appropriate to sort of like show
with that news?
what we may, the types of films we may be
Because
getting.
V for Vendetta, it is kind of like an Elseworlds film in that it is not in the main DC continuity, but it is still a DC film.
It's a Vertigo film, and Vertigo is an imprint of
Same
DC.
thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Constantine was a Vertigo film, so.
Yeah.
So that does it for this episode. Go ahead and subscribe to us on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and if you can, it would be nice if you left a review. That's always extremely helpful and ego boosting when it's good.
We're super lucky to have the reviews that we've gotten, like on iTunes specifically, have been really good. Super grateful to have those.
Yeah, tell your friends about us, and go ahead and look us up on dynamicduel.com. There you'll see a link to our store where we have a ton of cool Marvel and DC t-shirt designs that Jonathan and I designed ourselves. So go ahead and look those up, and go ahead and get those if you want to. And we'll go ahead and talk to you guys in a week. And until then,
Up and away.
true believers.